What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and many other tickers. I'm going to break down some very important news that just came out for NIO's deliveries and what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. So looking at NIO, we're up 2.05% for the day, holding up quite nicely. I think that NIO has more upside potential looking at the current technicals and the trend that is developing in the markets. So I'm going to break down some important news that came out on what's going on with all of this and then talk about how this all could affect NIO. So looking at NIO, I just want to mention that we have some earnings coming up. We just had PayPal announce its earnings. This is going to be important for the whole market. That's why I'm talking about this. PayPal did well for its earnings, and on top of that, it has a new higher than expected full year profit forecast. So that's good news for them. Now, as a reminder, I just want to remind you all that we also have Apple's earnings for Thursday. That's going to be very important as well. So if you're interested in looking at how that's going to affect the markets, that's going to affect how the market moves for Friday. We'll be watching that very carefully. But as far as NIO goes, we had deliveries come out. We did 16,074 deliveries for October. And in total, you could see their cumulative deliveries reached 415,000 plus deliveries as of October 31st for the month of October. That's a 59.8% year over year increase, which is big news for NIO. And we can actually see the chart right here. So you guys can see that these are all of the months basically. We have January, February, March, April, and etc. Let me just make this a little easier to see. Give me 1 second. So there we are. The darker rectangles are 2023, the light ones are 2022. And you can see over the last few months, there's a big improvement compared to last year for 2023. Now, margins are going to be one concern for many investors over the next couple of weeks when NIO announces its earnings. But as long as NIO tells us something to bring, a lot of investors in to get them excited, NIO is going to be fine, and that could be that NIO has, even more projected improvements coming when it comes to earnings and etc. When it comes to deliveries, and there's going to be more and more potential for this company's growth, especially going into the next year. Now, there's some concerns involving China and the current macroeconomic factor for the country, but moving forward, I don't think that this is going to be too negative for NIO. I think that we have some good news to help this thing continue to push. Now we have even more data right here. We actually have all the sales relative to the previous years if you want to look at this. And you could see the sales have continued to respect a very, very nice uptrend. And this uptrend will continue to help this thing push even higher. So with that being said, I think that there's going to be some very, very interesting technical developments. And I think that the market is going to have an effect on NIO, but NIO is starting to show improvement for deliveries and it's going to continue to grow nonetheless. So with that being said, as long as NIO continues this uptrend in their deliveries and we continue to see more growth, it's going to be in a very good place for the end of the year. Looking at NIO, we did 16,074 deliveries for the month of October. That's a big growth compared to September and the previous month, not to mention what we saw last year. Now, the crossover SUVs did 11,000, the sedans did about almost 5,000. That's a total of over 6,000 overall. And the ET5 saw an increase in its sales by 22%. Their SUVs and the crossovers saw an increase by over 85%. So not bad for NIO. On top of this, you will see that NIO has a buy rating from Deutsche Bank. Price-price ratio is down just a little bit, but it's not necessarily losing it. And Thursdays tend to be a little weaker as we're green only 50% of the time, so it's not a convincingly strong day historically. But the volume is looking pretty good at 33 million. So what do I think is going to happen to NIO? The answer is I think we're going to pull back a little bit, then we're going to see more buyers step in and start pushing this for 7.66. I think there's going to be more upside if we get above this 20 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. I think that it has more potential for upside. I'm going to break down more reasons in just a few minutes. But I want to mention that SPY, it happens to have a bearish divergence right now. You can see this developed on the 30 minutes time frame. So I'm anticipating a little drop to come. We might see this thing retrace towards 420 or so. However, it is not necessarily the end of the world because even though we're at this resistance at 423, which is the daily 200 EMA, so it spies that resistance. It's going to cool off a little bit. Okay, I'm anticipating it's going to cool off a bit towards 420, maybe 421.5, but then it's going to bounce because the daily is turning more bullish, and I anticipate it's going to drop a little bit, then continue to push as time goes on. And I think that Apple's earnings will have a big effect on whether or not this push continues for Friday. So we're going to be watching that very carefully. So I anticipate some downside, a little drop in the morning, then a bounce intraday, and I think that this thing will push up a little bit and get a decent day. Apple's looking quite good so far. The technicals look like it wants to balance, but just to be safe, we want to be watching to see what happens with some very important numbers. We're going to be watching to see how their earnings go. Now, Apple has established a nice bullish divergence, is trying to push up, but look for a little retracement. It might retrace towards 173 to 173.5, very close to this 20 EMA, then try to bounce for 176. And I think that there could be more upside after earnings, but we'll just have to wait and see. The QQQ is going to do the same thing as SPY, in my opinion. Could retrace a little bit. We might see this thing retrace towards 355 or so, then bounce and eventually make its way up to 360. But with this small retracement, I still believe in the potential of the QQQ. I still think that's just going to be another buying opportunity. And I think the same thing is going to happen to Nvidia, which is starting to turn bullish on the daily charts. Now, we could retrace in the morning just a little bit and then to 415 and then bounce and start pushing for 427 plus. If we break 428, you're going to be watching for 430 to be tested all over again. And if we break above, this high right here, if we break 428, you're going to be watching this thing retest 430, and 436 could be next for Nvidia. Because when you look at the daily chart, we have a nice accumulation structure, and you have a lot of these imbalances to start filling alongside these gaps. There's a gap up to 450. So I think that the Santa rally is starting, and we're going to see some more upside for Nvidia, and the market's going to see some very, very positive price action. With that being said, I think that this is going to have a big effect on NIO. I think that NIO is going to cool off just a little bit. The daily candle looks bullish, but we're going to cool off in the morning, retest the level I called out, that 7.25 to 7.3 area, then bounce and start filling this gap up to about 7.6 and make our way up towards the higher levels. We could get very close to 7.76 and then $8 later on. So I think a little retracement and a bounce is very probable for NIO, and we're going to see some upside. It's also November. Historically, the market is bullish during this month, and we're off to a good start because even after Jerome Powell gave a speech, the market pumped. Jerome Powell basically hinted that the Fed, they're going to see what happens with the data. Basically, they're not too fixated on raising any rates, and they've hinted that they may be, done with all of these. So if they're essentially done, that's going to be very interesting to see. If they're done raising rates and such, then that's going to be, very, very interesting. And this could help the markets moving forward. So we're going to be watching this all very carefully. We'll be seeing what happens, and we just want to remain as calm, cool, and collected as possible. So that being said, I anticipate some upside for NIO. First, it might cool off just a little bit. Might see a little retracement, but then we're going to see some very bullish price action later on as time goes on. And I anticipate that NIO is going to bounce to $8 soon. Watch it retest 7.25, then bounce to $8. We'll see how Apple affects NIO in the markets, and I do anticipate some upside nonetheless. All right, so thank you for listening. Have a good one, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and peace out.